I love Northern Virginia.
So typically a monastery is going to be very gray, very basic, very, very boring, quite honestly. When you look around and see the color, so in the 1940s, a monk named Gregory DeWitt came in and was allowed to paint the refectory, which you hope to see first. He kind of earned his stripes there, and then once he did that and they were happy with it, they allowed him to paint the church. He painted that building by himself. He had an assistant helping him in here, as you might imagine. It took him 5 years with an assistant to paint everything you see in here.
It was hand painted?
Hand painted.
Wow.
And it took him 4 years by himself in the refectory, which I hope we get to see in a few minutes. Okay? So, a lot of stuff. And again, I'm trying not to overwhelm you with facts and figures. But anyhow, yeah, that's some really cool stuff.
Everything is hand painted.
So have you ever been baptized?
No.
Have not, okay. One of the things that, if and when you become a Christian, that's one of the first things you do is become baptized. It's called a holy water font, and we bless ourselves, which is a renewal of our baptismal promises, basically. Mm-hmm. So when we come into church, we'll make the sign of the cross. It's like starting over again, saying, hey, God, I'm back with you again. I'm here with you on your team, and I've been on that team since I was first baptized, but that's why I'm here. That kind of makes sense? Mm-hmm. I don't want to overwhelm you. All right, so we got something called the narthex, kind of the entrance of the church. Mm-hmm. This next part is called the nave, N-A-V-E. It goes to that first big arch. You see it kind of looks like a ship. Nave comes from navis, the word navis, like a naval ship. Mm-hmm. Okay, then you have the choir, which is the monks sit across from each other and they pray to each other. Above the choir is the dome. And then the far end of the church is the sanctuary. And above the sanctuary, where you see Jesus up there with his hands open, that's called the apse, A-P-S-E. That's the area above the sanctuary. So it's kind of four parts of the church, and then you see they raise in elevation as you go up. Mm-hmm. And this church is actually oriented correctly. It's facing east. Christians believe that Christ is going to come from the east when he has his second coming, and so that's why they're facing this way. Many churches have what's called liturgical east, which means that they're not necessarily geographically facing east, but because the altar's at the front, it's called liturgical east.
This is headed east?
This is actually physically headed east, as it turns out. But most churches, they call it liturgical east, which means it's for the idea that's where Jesus comes from for his second coming. You know, I'm trying not to bore you too much, okay?
No, I'm interested.
Okay, all right, okay. That's wonderful. Okay, so that's kind of the way the church works. We're going to start in the front and work our way back. When you enter a Catholic church, and if you ever do it again, one of the first things you want to do is you want to find baptismal font. The second thing you want to find is, you see that candle over there on the right? You see part of that candle sticking out? That's called a sanctuary candle. Okay, and that indicates that Jesus is present in the church with us right now. He's in the tabernacle. You see the purple veil back there behind it? So it's called a tabernacle, and Jesus is in there now from a Catholic perspective. Body, blood, soul, and divinity. He's there today. So I'm going to genuflect when I get near there to show my honor and praise to Jesus when I get closer. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. Go forward. Of the once and only sacrifice that Christ made for all of us. Okay? got the sea of life represented by the water. And you got a recurring set of angels that kind of between us and heaven, if you will. But if you notice closely, the fingertips on the angels don't ever touch. And what that means is that sin can always sneak its way through. Hey, Mike, how are you?
Can you say that? Can you
Good
say
to
that
see
again?
I said that the fingers don't touch. It's symbolic of the fact that as hard as we try, we still tend to sin.
Yeah.
It's something called concupiscence, which means that we have the inclination to sin because of the sin of Adam and Eve. Okay, that's kind of what that's for. Anyhow, there's 3 angels' wings. In theory, one to cover their eyes, one to fly with, and one to cover their feet. The 4 rings could represent the 4 Gospels, those kind of things. Tree of life, Adam and Eve. There's just a lot going on up here. A lot of church history and things we can think about and pray about. Any questions on this? Anything you see up here?
It's very symbolic.
It is very symbolic, and it's
And
easy
symmetrical as well.
It is, and it tends to allow you to focus. There's a process called Lectio Divina, which allows you to take a Bible verse or a painting and focus on it and meditate on it for a period of time.
Yeah.
And that gets your spirituality developed a little better.
And I did some research, like the colors, how the colors can affect your thought process in a meditative way.
I don't know the process that Gregory DeWitt used, but he was a monk, so I assume it was the correct one.
Yeah.
The colors are symbolic, though. You're right; they represent quite a few things. So that's kind of the apse and the sanctuary. So this is where the Mass is celebrated. I just went on the trip and went to Turkey and to Greece and to Turkey. We did the Walk of St. Paul, and the old priest that we have with us, and I'm going to probably have a gift on it, the Holy Mass, not Mass, but the Holy Mass.
Right.
And I'm going to try to get the habit of starting using that term. Instead of going to Mass, I went to Holy Mass, and that's makes me think more about the process of what Mass is all about.
Have you been to the Vatican?
I have several times.
I've been to the Vatican
Yeah,
as well.
I've been to the Scavi, did the Scavi tour. And
I did a Scavi.
Yeah, so that's...
Well, I didn't do the Scavi tour. I saw St. Peter's tomb,
Right.
but I did do the School of Sanctis.
Okay.
God, my knees hurt. I couldn't go all the way up.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, it's a great thing. So, yeah, this is where the presentation, the representation of the once and for all sacrifice takes place on the altar. So that's kind of it. So this area here is called the choir. So the monks pray 5 times a day, I think, and they pray it, and they come here and they sit opposite each other. Part sit on this side, part sit on this side, and they do what's called chant. So this side will say part 1 of the prayer, and this part will say point 2. So it's back and forth. They kind of praying together to God.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but their day begins at what, 3 a.m.?
I think it's here. I think the first one they do is at 6, but don't hold me to that.
Okay.
Don't hold me to that.
'Cause I know some orders is 3 a.m.
Right.
They don't do the drop-in thing. They do vigils first thing in the morning.
At 6, like at 6 o'clock, something like that. What was it called before? No, it wasn't lodge. What was the first prayer?
So Lauds is the first prayer of the day, but they do vigils as the first prayer of the day at 6 a.m.
Okay.
Because like the Trappist will do vigils at 3 a.m.
Okay. This Trappist do at 3 a.m. I knew there was another version. Yeah. These guys do it 5 times a day, I think it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so Benedictines here do vigils at 6, Lauds at 7, and then nothing from there. You don't have to switch your
How many stops and how many?
So you're only seeing a very little part of the organ right here. A lot of it's behind the balcony up there. But yeah, so like each keyboard controls a different part of it. So this part right down here, this small little section, is controlled on this bottom keyboard, and it's these small little sounds. So this is usually when the monks are like chanting the psalmody. Usually it's on. That's enough. But you know, it can go all the way up to. And then here's like the main part of the organ, the grate, and that can be pretty. You can add those together. You can add even more. And then this part's way in the back, so it'll sound really far away. Almost there. We can control its volume, and of course we have the pedal division. But so often, like, there's all these funny little sounds on this organ, which the monks use a lot for the, Vespers and the liturgy hours. So, like, sometimes it'll. Like this guy up here. Strings. So it could sound like whatever you want it to.
So it says they have 2,019 pipes, 35 stops, and 38 ranks,
That sounds about right.
which is pretty powerful.
Yeah, plenty of organ. It's a good size for the room. Yeah. So up until 2000, the organ was actually in that gallery. I don't know why they moved it, but
Yeah.
they felt like it would be better on this side.
Huh.
It was built by an American maker, Dobson, in Iowa.
What's the significance of the mirrors?
Oh, nothing. So I can see what's going on. So like,
Oh, okay.
this one's pointed at the altar, so I know when to end offertory. This one's pointed at where the choir director usually stands, and just because I'm not facing the right direction.
How often do you play?
So I play. So there's something that happens every day of the week. So there's 2 organists here, and we trade off weeks. So I'll play Monday through Sunday.
What's open to the public?
All of it, basically.
Everything.
Yeah.
Nothing is not open as well. Everything is open.
So this week, since it's the last week of Advent, we do daily mass too accompanied. So we'll have.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I went to Mass at St. Peter this morning. Sorry.
So 11:15 tomorrow. So we have 7 a.m. lauds, 11:15 mass, and 5:30 vespers every day accompanied, and then of course Sunday
That's the
mass.
times.
It is a little. There's something in the gift shop I think that says that. It's actually in the back of this book. I think it was when the times are. Yeah. So a lot of good stuff. All right. Well, thanks for giving us a few minutes of your time.
Of course.
Thank you so much. I
Yeah.
appreciate
Are
it.
you all touring or?
We're touring. I'm Catholic. He is not Catholic, but we actually have a really interesting story. He's one of my beloved former students.
Cool. Welcome.
Malachi. Good name.
Good name.
I almost said something earlier. And Bruce.
Yep,
So,
Bruce.
yeah, so that's a good thing. Yep.
Nice to meet you.
Yep. Well, Mike, we're glad you're here, man. Appreciate
Yeah.
it. It's outstanding. Good
Thanks
seeing
for coming.
you.
Good to
All
see you. How's Claire doing?
right. She's doing fine.
Good.
Yeah, she's singing at Dominican now.
Awesome.
And doing her thing. So that's
to
my
hear it.
granddaughter. So, yep. And my daughter works at the school, so Sarah's still keeping. John the Baptist is known as the baptizer, so you see a little ciborium with a baby in it, like that would symbolize baptism. The shell on his left hip would be kind of how they baptize with water. Mary standing on the serpent's head with the fruit in the mouth. A lot of symbolism, a lot of good information here. On either side of the church, there are 6 saints on either side, women and men, and there are a variety of different saints. And at one point in my life, I probably knew who they were all, but their painting signifies what was important in their life. For example, Mary Magdalene is here. You got Saint Cecilia is here. You got Saint Agnes rather was here. So you got Cecilia back here, music, and a lot of different.
My late mother's middle name was Cecilia.
Oh, really? Yeah, yeah. So these are all great ways to meditate again on different saints. All right. Back here. So remember when I told you earlier, this is a Benedictine Abbey, so this is St. Benedict's Chapel. And that would be St. Benedict or image of St. Benedict. St. Benedict, and you probably know this, St. Benedict had a twin sister. You know
I
that?
don't know her name.
You don't know the name?
No.
Right, St. Scholastica
Saint Scholastica did not know that.
was his twin sister. And there's a couple of stories. I'm going to tell you one instead of both of them. I'll tell you one to speed things up. So the story goes is that St. Benedict had the men group that prayed together, and his sister, St. Scholastica, had the women's group. And they would pray together every day, and once a year or so, they would get together and pray together as a group. The story goes that Benedict and Scholastica and the groups got together one day to pray together, and at the end of the day, St. Benedict looked at his sister and said, you probably need to take your ladies and go back, and we need to go back home too and do everything. She goes, I don't want to go. She goes, no, you need to go. So the story goes that she went off and prayed, and all of a sudden this tremendous rainstorm came. Thunder, lightning, the whole bit. And so they ended up staying the whole day, right? And they prayed all night and everything. The next day they both went their separate ways, and 2 days later Saint Scholastica passed away. And so that was their last time together, as the story goes. This picture kind of reflects that. You can see the rain clouds, you can see the dove flying off in the sunset or into the clouds. That will be her soul going up to heaven. Symbolic, of course, of that. So that's kind of why that's there. All right. And I could spend way more time, but I'm not spending too much.
Is the ripple coming from the ceiling?
Say it again?
Is the ripple coming from the ceiling?
No, there's a water. It's underneath. It's actually spring fed. It actually comes out of a spring, local spring.
Okay. What's causing that?
Oh, the
That's
water's
a
being,
bubble?
Yeah, the water's being pushed out. It's constantly filled. You see it runs over here on the side, and it's constantly, but it's filled with fresh water.
Where's the spring located? Like?
It's an underground spring.
Oh, okay.
That's my understanding. I'm not an expert, but that's my understanding.
Yeah, they have those now.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely. All right. This is called St. Joseph's altar. So we got St. Benedict on one side, we got St. Joseph on the other. So it's a 10-foot statue of St. Joseph with the child Jesus as well. One picture, which is talking about the betrothal or the wedding, if you will, of Mary and Joseph. You know who those people are, obviously. I ask people sometimes if they know where Jesus is in that picture. The answer is he's right in her womb. So right kind of where that green bed of the lilies are, is where Jesus will be. She's with child, if you will. But if you look carefully, the artist has fun also. Probably would have cut leather shoes back in Jesus' time. So he has a little bit of fun doing some of those kind of things. Works out well. If you notice, everybody's eyes are closed except Joseph. And Joseph is the protector of Mary. So that's why his eyes are open, looking at Mary. There's an old priest in the Old Testament called Melchizedek, and that's in theory who that priest is in the middle, or a representation thereof.
When was this painted?
It was painted right here, March 25th, 1954.
Wow.
If you look on the top, let's see how this works. There's the little circle on the top. That's Eve coming out of the side of Adam. From the creation story, if you remember that, when God finally created Eve. And then on the right-hand side will be Eve handing the apple or the fruit, the forbidden fruit, to Adam. Both are represented here. All right, 2 minutes of total distraction. Yeah, this is called the Paschal candle. It's lit on Pentecost Sunday, and it's usually lit during the course of the year. But on the Easter Vigil, right before Easter, the day before Easter, it's a big deal. In every parish, you light this big candle for the year. There are 5 symbols on it, and those represent the 5 wounds that Christ had. So 2 in his hands, 2 in his feet, and 1 on his side, where he was, poked with the sword. If you know that story, when Jesus died. So a funny story. Years ago during COVID, at Mike's church, where my daughter is, and our grandkids were there, we went the year after COVID was over. So for the first time in a long time, there were people back in the church again. And the young Vietnamese priest said Mass, and a great guy, and he said, last year, Father Billy and I, the other priests, we were by ourselves doing all this formal stuff. There wasn't anybody else in the church because they couldn't get together because of COVID.